Did someone order a dark, gritty, grimdark fantasy that comes with every trigger warning imaginable? Wasn't me, but here it is anyway. Now, my experience with grimdark is limited. I did read Joe Abercrombie's The Devils last year, so I've had a taste of the genre. I just didn't understand the extremes, and Blades Forged by PJ Ashton takes it to an extreme, that's for sure. But does it go too far?
No fluff writing advice. Cut the fluff!
I do have plenty of critiques for Blades Forged, but they don't relate to the brutal, cynical, downright disturbing content. That's just part of the grim, dark vibe, I guess. I did, however, find myself rolling my eyes at certain things. Before we discuss my eyes spinning around in their sockets, let's discuss what's the opposite of eye rolling here? Eye reading. The parts that compelled my eyes to keep reading and stop rolling. Firstly, Blades Forge kicks off with a brutal opening, and you quickly learn what sort of world you're in and what type of people are in it. I'm sure plenty of readers drop this book within the first few paragraphs or sentences, words maybe, which is good. What, dropping a book is good? Not necessarily, but setting expectations early is important, and PJ does this well. It's better if someone drops a book at the start and forgets about it completely than dropping it halfway through and then proceeding to vent about their experience with a strongly worded review. I mean, it would be funny to start a book as a cozy fantasy, then halfway through shift into whatever Blades Forged is. It would shock people. Don't actually do it, I'm not saying that, but it would be funny. The story takes place in the middle of a war being waged by some emperor fellow, so there's a lot of war-related stuff going on, battles and tactics and whatnot. Probably seen it all before, or maybe not, because Blades Forged isn't a medieval fantasy. No, it's set in an age where gunpowder, muskets and cannons are a thing. I do appreciate it when authors move away from the traditional swords and wizards style of fantasy. I'm not saying we should never write about swords and wizards. I enjoy a good sword as much as the next guy, but occasionally it can't hurt to trade the blade for a powder-powered boomstick is all I'm saying. In Blades Forged, there's very little hand-holding when it comes to world building. Things sort of happen or are mentioned and you just sort of gotta roll with it. The magic system is mysterious and there are gods involved. You never fully know what's possible with the magic or what the gods are capable of, and you don't need to. I don't mind a certain level of mystery and intrigue in a story like this. Naturally, the gods are meddling in mortal affairs. Why? Who knows? But it adds an extra layer to the story, especially when it becomes clear characters can defy the gods to an extent. One of the most interesting parts of the story is the dialogue. Certain people have a very specific and stylistic way of speaking. The different styles help differentiate the classes and cultures and gives the dialogue flavor. There are a few parts where it does go a bit over the top, and I had to stop and reread to understand what the hell anyone was saying, but these moments are rare. Look, when you're messing with language like that, sure, be creative, but readability should be the ultimate goal. If readers have to stop and reread lines of dialogue, you've gone too far. I don't want to be translating dialogue as I read. Gonna have a cuppa down at Macca's with that bird I met at the bush doof before I nip down to the bottle-o to grab a sixie of blackfish. If you understood that, you might be Australian. I'm thinking about doing an entire video on Aussie slang, but that's a discussion for another time. Beyond the sometimes indecipherable dialects, no, it's not that bad, all the viewpoint characters are distinct, and while some seem disconnected from the main plot in the beginning, it does all come together nicely. Henna might be one of the most brutal and terrifying characters I've ever come across. Like many other characters, maybe all of them, she's experienced some serious trauma, so her personality and behavior make sense. I mean, the entire novel is fueled by trauma. It's a very traumatic environment. There is some humour sprinkled in throughout the narrative, but this ain't no laugh out loud tale of heroes and triumph. It's as dark as it is depressing. Considering Blades Forged is set in war times, there's a lot of fighting, yeah, and our viewpoint characters don't always come out without a scratch. It's realistic in that way. There are no win every fight heroes. Most wins do carry consequences or require sacrifices to achieve, creating a nice sense of tension. No one feels safe. Many of the fight scenes themselves are tense and nicely written. A lot of short, sharp sentences add a sense of urgency when used in the right places, which... All right, let's get into the critiques. I do want to talk about the pros. So, the short, sharp sentences that enhance the more tense scenes are overdone in some parts, in my opinion. So many short, similarly structured sentences in a row can make the prose feel mechanical, and I struggle to focus because reading becomes mechanical. There's a time and a place for all types of sentence structures, but in general prose, in the narration, it's important to mix it up unless there's a good reason not to. Look, if that's your style, then so be it. But it's insane how excited I got when I finally came across a sentence that was structured differently from the 50 before it. It felt like finding a bottle of water after days of wandering the desert. Yes, it's a sentence desert in there, in some parts at least. Blades Forged also has a lot of figurative language, all flavors of metaphors just dumped onto the page. Look, a lot of the time they work. Other times, they don't. Not for me, anyway. Many of the metaphors feel forced or straight up don't make sense to me. Here's one. The sun had risen, sharp edged and pale, casting long shadows that clung to the tree line like secrets unwilling to be named. Like secrets unwilling to be named? What the does that even mean? Maybe I'm simple and no, poetry isn't my thing, but shadows clinging like secrets unwilling to be named sounds like someone trying to say something profound while essentially saying nothing at all. If Blades Forge were all poetry, I could forgive the abstractness, but there are some good stretches where the figurative language is minimal and the plot has room to breathe. Other times, you're almost drowning in metaphors. There are some scenes where, for example, a character will look at something, then drop a metaphor, look at something else, drop another metaphor, look over there, metaphor, over there, metaphor. It feels unnatural and formulaic at times, like every observation must be accompanied by a metaphor, no matter how nonsensical. Some word choices don't make sense to me, or maybe I'm taking things too literally. At one point, someone's spine is described as sovereign. Sovereign, I can't figure out how that word applies to a character's spine. The exact line is, her chin was lifted, her spine sovereign. Just say her spine was straight or whatever you mean, because I don't know what sovereign means in that context. My eyes were rolling over time whenever I stumbled across and stumbled over some of these lines. Maybe this is an abstract style people enjoy. It's not my thing. I prefer figurative language that helps enhance understanding, not reduce it. I mean, you can say any old nonsense and make it sound profound, even call it poetry. Her voice was like a secret wrapped in sovereign silk. I said it, it doesn't mean anything. I just pulled it out of my sovereign butthole. People just don't think in so many metaphors, and in my opinion, overuse can bog down the narrative. It can feel like trying too hard. Some of the darker elements of the story also feel a bit over the top at times. They mostly work, but towards the end, they were almost comical and clownish, just broad daylight in a crowded market. I know that's the society they live in, but you know you've pushed it too far when the seemingly disturbing moments become so outlandish they almost feel like satire. I also got confused with the names at one point, and the first one's partly on me. I'll say this without spoilers. There are two people who have the same last name because they're related, makes sense. When they're first introduced, Hannah gives the youngest a nickname. Great, it helps me tell them apart. Later, when they reappear, they're referred to by their title and last name. And for a while there, I didn't realise that Lord Horsley and Colonel Horsley are two different people, which is really confusing considering what happens. I'll just leave it at that. Maybe that is just me, but I did laugh once I realised why I was so confused. Oh, at one point, a character's name changes from Tess to Jess for no apparent reason. That was confusing, unless there is a secret Jess in the group we don't know about until then. Either way, it temporarily derailed me as I tried to figure out who the hell Jess is and where she came from, concluding that Jess is likely Tess. She changes back to Tess in the next chapter, so all good. Speaking of characters, I found it tough to care about any of the viewpoint characters, and it's not because most of them are terrible people. For a lot of the book, they don't have any clear goals or motivations. They almost feel like a supporting cast. Who's the protagonist here? Everyone's just being pushed around by the plot and the gods and the emperor. At least he shows some initiative. Maybe the emperor should have been the star of the story. Even the chosen one, if you can call him that, the wolf, doesn't start to act beyond the emperor's orders until the second half of the story. Everyone just feels like a puppet of the gods for the first half. So, if you like the style, yes, the plot does pick up in the middle. Hang in there. Morel, the wolf's wife, I guess she is, has the most interesting story and character arc, even if it is strikingly similar to a certain Song of Ice and Fire storyline. But her development in the second half feels rushed. She instantly becomes competent at her new job, and I thought, off page, months had passed. Nope, 10 days to completely change as a person in personality and skill set. Intense 10 days, I guess. I would have liked the middle events to take place earlier and for her to receive a slower development, showcasing her struggle to fit into her new role. I'd need to read the book again to answer this question, but I do wonder if it would have been better to cut the first half of the story in half and expand the second half. You know, the part where viewpoint characters start showing some level of agency. The plot does work and the book sets up the series well, but I feel like good could have been great with some restructuring. But I'll admit, Grimdark is a bit of a blind spot for me, and I do need to read more in the genre. I do find it funny that in this book at least, none of the characters become better people. If anything, the less monstrous characters become more monstrous. It's grim and dark. Yes, grimdark. The description fits the genre label. Oh, yeah. I almost forgot to include this point. Now I'm speaking out of school here. Here we go. But in Blades Forged, it is insanely easy to just chop someone's head off with a sword. I thought that's meant to be really difficult to do, but characters in this book can just walk up to someone and lop their head clean off. I mean, how easy is it to decapitate someone with a sword? Yeah, I don't need that one in my search history. Oh, one more thing that made me laugh. There's a scene where some soldiers go to a tavern to cause some mischief, let's just say. They get to the crowded tavern, and what do? They knock. They're about to storm the place, and they stop and knock on the front door of an open business. I'm not a bloodthirsty soldier, and I don't think I've ever gone to a pub and knocked. You just walk in. Am I going to go to the supermarket and knock on the front door as it slides open? Maybe it's a cultural thing, but where I'm from, we don't knock on the front door of an open business. I'm just having fun with this one. PJ did give me permission to go hard. But look, overall, if you like your prose as purple as comedian Bert Kreischer and you like your grimdark dark, this book would have never survived the traditional publishing process. I will say the plot does pick up pace in the second half, and we do get a satisfying ending. Yes, there is a complete story arc, praise the gods, which is something a lot of indie authors seem to neglect. Sure, book one of a series will have a lot of setup, which this one does, but you've got to have some payoffs in there too. In that regard, Blades Forged does deliver. So, if you're in the market for one of the most disturbing books you'll likely read in the fantasy genre, or maybe I've just lived a sheltered life, Blades Forged shows the dark side of humanity while somehow managing to be entertaining. My question is it actually showcasing genuine human nature in a grimdark setting, or is the darkness exaggerated? I'm leaning towards exaggerated, especially considering the intensity of my eye rolling in some parts, but maybe that's just wishful thinking. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy this video, hit subscribe anyway, and hate watch my content. That's always fun.